Three diddly dings, everyone. That didn't make any sense. So, our last video I was talking about how I hadn't made my Game of Thrones review yet, so I thought I would do that now with this Clash of Kings. I like this, how this setup works. I just put something down and it's kind of like a thing where you have it in the corner of this video, like here or something. I made a, no, I couldn't put a shelf right here because it blocked my view. Anyway, Game of Thrones Clash of Kings. I read this the other day. It's a thick boy too. All these Game of Thrones are thick as fuck. I like it. So, I was trying to kind of think of all the differences between the TV show and the book. It doesn't really matter. It's pretty much the same. But there's a lot of stuff like George Martin gets into some weird stuff. Like there's this one part where 50 people rape a retarded girl. That's not in the TV show. I wonder why. Because they have him strung up and hanged. So, like I said in the first Game of Thrones, Jaime Lannister's a real dick. Like, there's nothing, like in the show, he's kind of turns into a good guy and you like him. In the book, he's a complete fucking, he needs to die. He deserves death and there's no coming back from it. There's no, the same thing with the Hound. The Mountain, especially. The Mountain's like 10 times worse than the TV show. Like, all these people are just horrible rapists, murderers. Just the worst fucking assholes. Irredeemable pieces of shit. They all need to die. So they're all just horrible. I mean, just one thing after another. They're killing, they're raping, they're throwing kids out of towers. Just going through, like, if you're a peasant in Game of Thrones, it's like, I guess you come from the castle-y areas and you try to, like, stake out a life for yourself and be a farmer, but then you know eventually there's going to be some kind of war between these bannermen or holdfast people, and somebody's going to come along and just kill the lot of you and burn everything to the ground and just murder all your cows, and you're going to lose everything. Eventually it's going to happen. But I guess it's better than just being a street ruffian or something. I don't know. So in this book, it's more you can see where people are, because when I was watching the TV show, I didn't know when Arya is with this guy, he's taking this group of people to the crows, to the wall, and she's pretending to be a boy. They don't really tell you where they are, but in the book you get this handy little map in the front where you can look and say, okay, so they're fighting in Riverrun, and they're just north of that, but they're not all the way to Winterfell yet. They're at this place, Harrenhal. So, and then, like, the Red Wedding hasn't happened yet, so I'm guessing that's the next book. And I can't remember if it was the Freys. I think it was Walder Frey that did it, but was it Roose Bolton, maybe? So, this kind of gets to the part where Theon Greyjoy, who was kind of the ward of the Starks, and he leaves Winterfell because he knows the people from the Isles, the Iron Islands, because he was kind of like a prisoner, but they're like, he's not really a prisoner, we just took him as, treated him like our son. So he's still like, no, I was a fucking prisoner, you piece of shit. I'm gonna go back to my dad and I'm gonna, like, take over Winterfell. They sent him on a mission to, like, take over these small little coastal islands. They're like, no, I'm gonna take over Winterfell because I know hey, what's the other Stark kid's name? Robb Stark. His army is out of Winterfell, and they're like Riverrun? I think they're in Riverrun. So, like, there's nobody there but Bran and, like, a handful of dudes. So he went in with, like, 20 or 30 people and just take over Winterfell. And everybody hates him. And then there's these, So Bran and these two kids, the Crannig men, they're from the swamp. See, I didn't realize they were from the swamp in the show. They're from this place where they say the castle moves. It's constantly moving. And I was thinking, like, how could that work? And maybe that's what they say, but it's like, you know, in Swamp of Sorrows and Warcraft, where there's, like, all these little creeks you gotta hop over and stuff, like in the swamp. There's always crocodiles in them and shit. And sometimes there'll be, like, a little bridge. Like, what if they have, like, a portable bridge? They'll move it constantly. They'll move it down the river or down the creek, and they'll put it in different places. So, like, one year you can access this castle from the north or the south, and then they'll move it, and now it's like the east or the west. So they think the castle moves, but it's actually the route to get to the castle changes. This is just me thinking. This is probably how it would work. So these people they carry spears and they eat frogs supposedly. It's the Krannogmen. So that was the guy and the girl. The girl is kind of like a three-eyed crow, like he is, I think, or she's kind of psychic, I think, right? So I didn't really get this from the TV show. I just thought they were just some randoms that he met up with. They came to the castle because they're like one of the bannermen of the Starks. So then you also got the deal with the free folk. What do they call them? The waddling girl that John and the TV show. Totally different story, like their relationship, I think, where he like sleeps with her or something, and then he supposedly like he doesn't really break his vow, but he tells the guy tells him to break his vow, and it's not really breaking your vow because we're using you as a spy. That's why he can get into the Wallings. I didn't realize that from the show. That would have made a lot more sense. I don't think they explained it in this show very well. This kind of like real intricate details of what's going on. Like with Stannis Baratheon and Renly Baratheon, that's Robert's brothers. Stannis is older, so he has the right to the throne, but Renly's more loved by everyone, so he has more of the claim because everybody's backing him. He's more like down there in High Garden area, which is where I would want to hang out if I was in Game of Thrones, because that's just like, it's like the old school King Arthur Knights. They're having tournaments, there are flowers everywhere, there's food everywhere, just a jolly good time, unless you're, what's his name, not totally the Tarly kid, the fat guy that went to the wall. So there's this part where Stannis Baratheon, he's with Melisandre, and she sends this shadow somehow to kill Renly Baratheon, and he dies right in front of Catelyn Stark and Brienne of Tarth. So Renly Baratheon's dead. And then Stannis is fighting King's Landing. And then all of a sudden, Renly Baratheon shows up and saves the day at the end. So, like, I think it was somebody just dressed in Renly Baratheon's armor, because he had, like, the stag helm armor or something that looked like him, maybe. Because they established that he was well and truly dead, and then he said he shows up again. So I don't know what's going on with that. And then also, the whole deal with Daenerys being across the sea, they explain that when her dragons are born, there's more magic is coming back into the world because dragons exist now. And like the warlocks, they go through the Temple of the Undying. House of the Undying, that's what it's called. And there's this whole like weird, trippy LSD trip kind of a thing that wasn't in the TV show at all, I don't think. Those are the warlocks. They drink this stuff and they get their lips turn purple, and it's kind of like they're drugged out, but they also know magic, sort of. So they tell her to keep going to the door on the right, and then she ends up seeing all this stuff from the past and the future and stuff. I don't know how she gets out of it. I think somebody helped her outside, or the dragon maybe killed somebody. I kind of was zoned out during all this crazy trip and stuff. But then also, the Alchemist Guild in King's Landing that are making the witch fire, I think it was called, the green fire that Tyrion uses to blow up the ships. Remember that part in the show? It's way easier to make that stuff because they have to cast a magic spell on it. And since the dragons exist, they don't know that the dragons exist yet, but they're saying, I don't know, magic's starting to work again. What, is there dragons or something? Nobody knows there's any dragons around here. So, that's pretty interesting. So, there's like all this old witch fire that's more potent. Because it was from the previous Aegon Targaryen's time. I think they used some and they had a bunch left over. So, let's see. What happened in Harrenhal? Something happened in there. I think Arya did something. I mean, it's been like a week or so since I read this. I'm trying to remember. Anyway, it was way cooler knowing all the places everybody was and like the strategy and the movements of people going around doing stuff. Like all this stuff's happening. Highly recommend Game of Thrones. It's a pretty good book series, I gotta say. Now I want to rewatch the show.